The motions for the sidespin-topspin and sidespin-backspin serves look identical. Backspin, topspin, backspin. Today, let's break down the backhand serve. As an amateur player, you should definitely practice the right sidespin serve. This is because it's excellent for setting up your attack. The right sidespin is challenging for opponents to handle, while the left sidespin can usually be returned with a simple push. Isn't it much harder to generate sidespin-topspin with a standard left sidespin serve? However, both the backhand serve and the hook serve make it very easy to generate sidespin-topspin. If you're playing against a skilled player using only sidespin-backspin, it will take a long time to win points. You'll lose the pushing rally, you can't loop effectively, and if they loop first, it's difficult to block. Therefore, you should try to initiate topspin rallies. Older players with weaker fundamentals are particularly poor at handling topspin because their anticipation, footwork, and coordination are slow, leading to an unforced error within 2 or 3 shots. Amateurs with a few years of experience mostly serve a semi-spinny backspin ball, which makes it very easy for the opponent to just push it back. Many players serve like this, and then find themselves losing the short game rally. Even if they manage to push it back, they can't initiate a loop. That's why amateur players must learn to serve topspin to take the initiative in matches. Don't worry even if your opponent flicks or blocks. If they block, you can immediately attack by changing the placement. When they return your serve, you can counter with a quick rip or more topspin. After your serve, if they flick, your follow-up attack will be too fast for anyone to react to. Why do you think professional players all use this tactic? They start with a long serve, and if the opponent handles it well, they switch to a short serve. Most amateurs can't flick properly, they use only their forearm, resulting in an unstable return. Against a slow, high-arcing flick like that, you can smash it or attack the wide angle. This tactic is very effective. This is much better than serving backspin, cautiously pushing, making errors when you try to attack, and being unable to defend when your opponent attacks. Some say a topspin serve is easy to smash, but who can really smash it? A hard hit is likely to go off the table. When I teach the short serve to the corner, people say it will be smashed. That's only if your serve lacks speed and has a high arc. But if you serve fast, the opponent will struggle just to keep up. Amateurs fear speed. As long as your serve is fast with wide placement, they'll be lucky just to make contact. You need to focus on the quality of your own serve. I don't recommend standing in the backhand corner for a backhand serve, because if the opponent returns short to your forehand, it creates a very large opening. So, I will teach you to serve from the center line. All right sidespin serves, including my own hook serve in matches, are performed from this position. Serving from here has 2 main advantages. When serving right sidespin from the middle, the first benefit is that your short serve will bounce twice just past the edge of the table, making the trajectory very tricky. You can aim for the wide angle, right on the sideline. The second benefit is that you can serve long to jam the opponent at the baseline. Serving from the corner makes the ball travel longer, but from the middle, the path is shorter, giving the opponent less time to react and disrupting their anticipation. Therefore, I recommend serving all right sidespin serves from the middle of the table for wider angles and a greater threat. First, let's discuss the principle of the sidespin-topspin serve. A ball that is simply pushed forward like this is effectively a topspin ball. In my professional career, I mainly used left sidespin and backhand serves. When I first started, I could never generate sidespin-topspin, while sidespin-backspin was as easy as a simple push. Sidespin-backspin is easy, but sidespin-topspin is difficult. My coach told me to first practice a simple forward motion. This is a topspin ball, but it has no spin. While moving forward and upward, add a sideways motion. This is how you create sidespin-topspin. The principle of sidespin-topspin is to keep the racket angle slightly vertical and, on contact, move sideways and upwards. That's your topspin. If your motion is downward first and then upward, you'll produce a dead ball that's easy to push, flick, or even attack directly. Your topspin serve should be strong enough that even if the opponent flicks it, the ball goes out. Therefore, the motion must be distinctly upward to be considered sidespin-topspin. If you can't get the feel, break it down, first forward, then gently forward and sideways, and finally sideways and upward. That's your topspin. When I serve, I just conceal this motion. But the principle is still topspin. As a beginner, you can practice in steps. First, move forward. Second, move sideways. Then, integrate the full backswing. Now you know how to do a backhand serve. For sidespin-backspin, think of it like a push. The idea is to brush the ball forward and downward. Start by practicing just tapping the ball with the racket tip. Notice my wrist isn't moving. From this basic motion, now brush sideways and downward. Penhold players should really master the backhand serve, the motion is so natural. Push towards the side and down, and that force generates sidespin-backspin. First, practice the downward motion. Then, angle your racket to the left and direct the force sideways and down. That's your sidespin-backspin. If you execute this with more speed, you'll get a heavy sidespin-backspin serve. For sidespin-topspin, you start from the same position, but the racket path is upward instead of downward. The topspin motion finishes towards your right shoulder, while the backspin motion finishes towards your right hip. The spin is generated from this friction. If you're struggling with your hook or reverse pendulum serve, you can use the backhand serve as an intermediate step. To review, a downward motion creates backspin. Angle the racket sideways and finish towards your right hip for sidespin-backspin. For topspin, lift forward and upward, angle the racket left, and finish towards your right shoulder. So, how do you add more spin to the serve? This is why I recommend it for penholders. Look at the range of motion of a penhold grip. A shakehand grip can't rotate that far, it stops here. With a shakehand grip, the racket face can't rotate further for both topspin and backspin serves. But a penhold grip can, which is why penholders should use this serve. A penhold sidespin-backspin serve has a deceptive S-shaped trajectory. The extra spin comes from that final snap of the fingers to accelerate the racket head. This applies to both topspin and backspin. For shakehand players, this finger action is more difficult. So for my shakehand serve, I generate power from my forearm. Especially for sidespin-topspin, the wrist is locked, so you must use the opening and closing of your forearm to whip the ball. You generate spin by extending and then snapping the forearm shut. Sidespin-backspin is a bit easier because you can use the downward motion of the racket tip to add spin. A major advantage of the backhand serve is your quick recovery. Serving from the middle, the opponent is very unlikely to return wide to your backhand. The return will usually be to the middle or forehand, allowing for an easy attack or follow-up. Especially after a topspin serve, even if the return is fast, you're already in position in the middle. So you don't need to move, making your next shot much easier. Now, let's work on deception. I'll serve one, and you tell me if it's sidespin-topspin or sidespin-backspin. Topspin or backspin? That was backspin. The backhand serve motion is very visible to the opponent, making deception difficult. Let me show you my method for creating deception. I always start my backswing from below my left arm and finish the motion towards my right shoulder. For a sidespin-backspin serve, you make contact with the ball during the downward part of the swing and use the upward motion as a deceptive follow-through. Conversely, if there is no contact on the downward motion and you brush the ball on the way up, it's a sidespin-topspin serve. Let's use a clock face analogy. If you brush the ball from 8 o'clock down to 6 o'clock, you're imparting sidespin-backspin. The subsequent motion from 6 to 3 is purely for deception. If the motion from 9 o'clock down to 6 o'clock is a fake, and the real contact is from 6 o'clock up to 3 o'clock, then it's a sidespin-topspin serve. For example, here I'm clearly contacting the ball on the upward swing. That's topspin. If I contact it on the downward swing, that's backspin. Then, finish both serves with a high follow-through. This is how I create deception. The follow-through for both the sidespin-topspin and sidespin-backspin serves can look identical to confuse your opponent. Topspin. Backspin. Topspin. When you're first learning, don't worry about deception. Just remember that brushing from 6 o'clock up to 3 o'clock is sidespin-topspin. And brushing downwards from around the 8 or 7 o'clock position towards 6 o'clock is sidespin-backspin. Understand it this way. For instance, a serve like this looks like topspin to most people. But it's actually a backspin serve. Many players will see your high follow-through and assume it's a topspin serve. Now, let me give you a tip on serving mentality. When you serve, don't reveal all your best serves at the beginning of the match. Don't use your ace serves when you have a big lead like 8-3 or 7-4. Save your best serves for the most critical moments. Your mentality is stronger when you have a trump card. Top players always change tactics and serves at crucial points. If you've already shown everything, your opponent will be fully prepared. When you're leading comfortably, just use simple serves. Long and fast, backspin, short serves. Don't use your best variations. Some serves are for general play, some are for 9-9, and others are only for a 2-2 game score in the final set. So, don't keep using your trick serves to win easy points when you're far ahead. The opponent will gradually adapt to them. A good player only needs to see a serve 2 or 3 times. We might get fooled once, but never again in the next game. We will find a way to return it safely and then rally with you. Between sidespin-topspin and sidespin-backspin, which is more effective? Sidespin-topspin is. That's why you must master it. Let me show you a deceptive sidespin-topspin serve that looks like backspin. The principle is to push forward and then make a downward motion. I'll demonstrate how it's done. You need to use a subtle, firm pressure with your fingers. Push forward, then down, even with a relatively flat racket angle. It's about combining forces. As you toss the ball, you meet it with this combined motion. Then, make the overall action more compact and faster. Your body language is key. Dip your head and body downwards, making it look like a heavy backspin serve. Use this at a crucial point, and it will be very effective. The opponent will instinctively try to push it. Drop your head and body, and act like you're putting maximum effort into it. Remember this key principle: an exaggerated, forceful motion often results in a no-spin or low-spin serve. Conversely, a relaxed, effortless-looking motion can produce a very heavy spin serve. You see amateurs telegraph their backspin serve with a huge, obvious motion. Everyone can read it. Look at my hook serve. It's a kicky sidespin-topspin serve. When I serve with heavy spin, I often pretend it's a casual, no-effort serve. You have to mix real and fake actions. Sometimes, use a forceful action to serve a no-spin ball. The goal is to always keep your opponent guessing. In summary, I highly recommend the backhand serve for amateurs. Let me give you 3 target placements. And remember the most important rule: serve from the middle. First, the short sidespin-topspin serve to the forehand side. Practice making it bounce twice just over the end of the table. Second, the long, fast sidespin-topspin serve to the backhand baseline. You must practice this placement. Third, the long sidespin-backspin serve to the forehand side. This serve is extremely effective. Because you are serving from the middle, it's a wide-angle backspin serve. The opponent has to move from their backhand side, deal with a downward brushing motion, and handle a right side spin that breaks away from them. It's incredibly difficult. To recap the 3 placements: short sidespin-topspin to the forehand, long sidespin-topspin to the backhand baseline, and long sidespin-backspin to the forehand. Remember that the same serve to different placements will have different effects. However, you can't use these same placements with a hook serve, because serving a hook serve long to the forehand is very obvious. That's why a hook serve is typically served short and with sidespin-topspin to the opponent's backhand, as it's easy to jam them there. When I serve a fast hook serve, I always aim it at their backhand sideline. This will absolutely jam them. Aim for the middle with side backspin, and the backhand sideline with side topspin, and your hook serve will be twice as effective. But if you serve a short hook serve, don't aim for the sideline because it's likely to go long. Aim for the middle instead. Serving to the middle makes it awkward for them to flick with either their forehand or backhand. And because it bounces twice on their side, they can't loop it either.